Just when you thought the MAGA Civil War was over, it seems to have entered a new phase thanks to Marjorie Taylor Greene and her meltdown on Twitter. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. All right, folks, this is a relatively fun one. It's lighthearted. It's about MAGA dysfunction and incompetence and schismatic infighting, which means it's hilarious for all of us. So let's dive into it. The triggering event, the catalyst for this new phase of the MAGA Civil War, was an attempt by Marjorie Taylor Greene to censure a Democratic Congresswoman named Rashida Tlaib. Marjorie Taylor Greene forces vote on measure to censure Rashida Tlaib, whom she says incited an insurrection. The resolution that Marjorie Taylor Greene proposed accuses Tlaib of leading an insurrection at the United States Capitol complex for speaking to protesters advocating for a ceasefire. Other protesters gathered inside the Capitol building, resulting in more than 300 arrests for demonstrating in a restricted area and 3 charges of assault on a police officer. Okay, this was a few weeks ago. This was the basis for the censure. Now, I want to play actually, I'm going to go ahead and just skip to the part about the vote itself. The measure failed, okay? It failed with every Democrat voting against it and 23 Republicans voting against it as well, okay? So she brought it to the floor. It failed. Every Democrat and even 23 Republicans voting to protect Rashida Tlaib. The ensuing meltdown of Marjorie Taylor Greene on Twitter is hilarious. We've got several tweets to look at. So first, she said, a list of feckless Republicans that voted with Democrats to table my censure resolution against Rashida Tlaib. This is why Republicans never do anything to stop the communist Democrats or ever hold anyone accountable. Pathetic. And she shared a list of the Republicans in question. Here's the list of Republicans that did not vote at all, and listed 13 Republicans who didn't vote. Now, in response to this, she continues. She quote tweets herself and she says, must be great to be a Democrat. They all stick together to destroy our country and cover up each other's lies and stand unified to protect Tlaib, the Hamas caucus. But Republicans just join Democrats and vote to destroy our country and our party. Because apparently Rashida Tlaib, whatever you regard Rashida Tlaib's opinions, apparently her engaging with protesters, some of whom then went on to do a sit-in at the Capitol. And as far as I'm aware, there's no evidence that she urged them to do so or certainly participated. But that's destroying the country. You might think, wow, that's really hyperbolic. But we'll get to specifically why Marjorie Taylor Greene is making that very bold claim, because she openly admits why. Some of the conservatives on this list, she continues, again, just quote tweeting herself just again and again, just like working herself up into a froth-induced rage. Some of the conservatives on this list are claiming they couldn't vote to censure Tlaib because my resolution called October 18th an insurrection. These same conservatives have never lifted a finger to help January 6th defendants. They could care less if they're rotting in jail. We're starting to get to the heart of it, see. There are Republicans who said they probably would have voted to censure Tlaib if Marjorie Taylor Greene hadn't accused her of being an insurrectionist. But again, it continues. So Chip Roy, who is a Freedom Caucus member, we've covered him in previous videos. He's as deranged as they get, very violent, very aggressive, a far-right fanatic. His press conference said, Rashida Tlaib has repeatedly made outrageous remarks towards Israel and the Jewish people. Her conduct is unbecoming of a member of Congress and certainly worthy of condemnation, if not censure. However, tonight's feckless resolution to censure Tlaib was deeply flawed. It made legally and factually unverified claims, which is hilarious coming from one MAGA cultist to another, including the claim of leading an insurrection. I voted to table the resolution. In January 2021, the legal term insurrection was stretched and abused by many following the events at the Capitol. We should not continue to perpetuate claims of insurrection at the Capitol, and we should not abuse the term now. Now, of course, those of us who are sane recognize that the January 6th insurrection was indeed that, so he's wrong on that, but he is correct to say that what Rashida Tlaib did is nowhere near qualifying for an insurrection. So in response to this, Marjorie Taylor Greene publicly responds and says, you voted to kick me out of the Freedom Caucus, but keep CNN wannabe Ken Buck and vaping, groping Lauren Boebert, and you voted with the Democrats to protect terrorist Tlaib. You hate Trump, certified Biden's elections, and could care less about January 6 defendants being persecuted. Continues. Thomas Massey, again, another far-right MAGA Republican from Kentucky, says January 6 protesters were not insurrectionists, nor were those led by Rashida Tlaib. Again, he's making a false equivalence, but whatever. I voted to table the censure resolution of Tlaib in part because it was modeled after legislation that condemned the January 6 protesters. Also, free speech means protecting even the speech you don't like. Again, Marjorie Taylor Greene responds, censure is Congress's free speech to condemn another member's actions and words, speech. Refusing to censure is not defending terrorist Tlaib's freedom of speech, it's allowing her to continue. What do you mean allowing her to continue? That's the whole point of freedom of speech, right? At least by the conservative definition, more speech, right? That's how you combat bad speech. Well, you're free to do that. What do you mean that a censure would not allow her to continue? And if your goal is to not allow her to continue, aren't you by definition violating her free speech? See how inconsistent Marjorie Taylor Greene is? This is where she gives the game away, Until we force Dems to live by their own rules, nothing will change and you know it. This is about owning the libs. She's doing it deliberately and purposefully. But wait, there's more. She doesn't stop. Chip Roy responds, this is from the media. Chip Roy responds to this dig from Marjorie Taylor Greene. Tell her to go chase so-called Jewish space lasers if she wants to spend time on that sort of thing, he told me walking to the conference this morning. Oof, Chip, shots fired. To which Marjorie Taylor Greene responds, oh, shut up, Colonel Sanders. You're not even from Texas. More like the DMV. Chip Roy's career exists of working for politicians, working for campaigns for politicians, and being a politician himself. Unity party all the way, which is why you will never hold anyone accountable. But wait, there's more. Until you force the enemies to live by the same rules, they're going to keep stomping our faces in the pavement. Chip Roy will be reciting his powdered wig soliloquies as Americans are marched to the firing squads. Very hyperbolic, very violent, but also kudos to her for using the phrase powdered wig soliloquies. I thought that was beyond her. And then finally, I just want to draw your attention to a tweet from Marjorie Taylor Greene just a few days ago. United we stand, divided we fall. The problem is we're having a hard time uniting in what we stand for, but it shouldn't be so hard. Congress is all hired by the American people. We should unite together to stand for America and solve the problems afflicting Americans. The Republican Party is indeed having a hard time uniting, but I would argue that Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of the single biggest agitators against unity. That just endless tirade. It's probably going on even at the time of recording. It shows no signs of relenting. Right now, she is initiating, the latest phase of Republican disunity. It's all on her. Let me know what you think in the comments section. I think this is hilarious, and I think Democrats should continue to exploit it in any possible way.